Here I am, 25 miles west of Amsterdam, in the outpatient clinic of Professor Rose, a famous Huntington's disease neurologist. I'm sitting in the back while he examines Huntington's disease patients with various symptoms and severities. I feel unease. What will these people think of me sitting in the back, listening to their personal stories? And I feel sad. I knew about the disease from the study books, but what a terrible disease this is. Then the last client of the day enters, a beautiful young blonde girl, her boyfriend quietly supporting her. She asks me what I'm doing here, so I tell her I just started my PhD and that I'm here to observe. And she smiles at me and she shakes my hand. I understand she's here for the second time. The first time was when she decided that she wanted to get tested, whether she also is carrying the gene that's causing Huntington's disease that's in her family. And she was recently facing some movement issues, and she tells me about the experience she had in the cinema when she was tapped on the shoulder by a person sitting behind her, whether she could please sit still. But she wasn't moving at all, nor had she been drinking any alcohol. She wished she had, and she started laughing. And the boyfriend just quietly shaking his head. I'm sitting in the back of the room when this young girl in the early 20s, same age as me, get the verdict that she has the gene, that she has Huntington's disease. She listens, and then she starts laughing. She says, like, well, at least now I can blame Huntington for the fact that I'm so clumsy once in a while. And I'm like, isn't she listening to what he's telling? And I have to think about myself, what would I do with such a verdict? In the early 20s, same age as me, and then you get the verdict you have Huntington's. Dr. Rose takes a paper and a pen, he starts drawing on the path forward. A lot of uncertainties, not clear how and when, but it will happen. After she digests, she stands up together with her boyfriend. They thank the doctor, and she approaches me and wishes me good luck with my PhD. Don't know what to say, so I thank her, and she leaves the door. So, another day at the clinic, Professor Rose says. And I'm like, how can you shift gears that quickly? Back in the car, I'm overthinking the day, and I feel really sad. What am I doing with my life? A girl in the early 20s just got the verdict having Huntington's disease. What do? I go out with friends, play soccer, do a PhD. But why? I certainly want to have my life more of a meaning. So I decided there in the car that I wanted to do something else with my life. I want to fix things. My parents always have been problem solvers, and my father, his whole working life, worked in construction. He and I used to work on broken Japanese cars, overhauling them. So there in the car, I decided that's what I want to do. I want to use my skills to fix this disease. I want to work on a cure. So I was motivated to the bone, went full into my PhD, which resulted in a couple of nice scientific publications, ended up being taken over by some pharmaceutical companies still in development. But then money ran out, as often in science, and I worked less and less on the therapy development. And I got more into a routine of going to work, doing my thing, going home. Then my routine changed when my daughter and a bit later my son were born. And time became more precious as I wanted to be around them as much as I could. And I wanted to be able to tell them that when their father was not around, he went to work, he was there fixing these terrible diseases. So that's when I decided to make a switch, and I got the opportunity to become the lead scientist on the Huntington's disease program at Unicure. At Unicure, as a scientist, I worked in the lab, make long days, writing reports, and in the lab I was making brain cells from patient-derived skin cells and testing various therapies on them. As often in science, most of the studies actually fail. But the program was moving in the right direction, and I was proud of what the team has succeeded thus far. And I wanted to share with the Dutch community. I want to share with the blonde girl. I want to give her some hope. So here we are, almost a decade later, in our Amsterdam office, in a room packed with over 150 people. Gene carriers, family members, caregivers. And we start presenting about Unicure, about the gene therapy, as I suddenly recognize her in the audience. I don't dare to approach her. Most likely she will not remember me anyway, and I noticed that her personality has changed due to the disease. So we continue discussing, giving a presentation on the results we've obtained, that we could lower the Huntington protein in the animal models that results in the symptom improvements. And the room is full of excitement. But then they start asking these questions like, but what about us here in Europe? And I'm flooded. I start explaining that the trial starts in the US because the approval process is much quicker for gene therapy, and that the neurosurgical procedure is quite complex. But some people get emotional, and I'm there at the stage, devoting my life to fix this disease, and I feel I've just broken the trust. But it also motivates me more to work on the cure. 2 years later, I'm at the campsite when I get a message on my smartphone saying that the first Huntington's disease patients have been dosed in the US. And I'm so happy. And I look at my wife, and I discussed with her and decided to drive home, 2-hour drive, to get a special bottle of wine that I kept specifically for this occasion. And although this glass of wine is the best one I've ever tasted, I kept remembering the blonde girl. And I'm so glad that 2 years later, this year, in fact, we also started treatment of the gene therapy in Europe. And although the clinical trial is still ongoing and it's so early to draw conclusions, we're getting closer to a cure every day. And every day, I try to remember to spend the time that I have as much as I can with my wife and my kids to go, for instance, camping.